Hi, my name is Leandro Facchinetti, and in 1.5 months, my first son will be born. And my wife is having this baby shower with her friends, and I built her a web page for the for the attendees to respond. So the idea is that she's gonna send a link to this page that also has a registry, but that's another story. And it has a field for them to fill in their emails and names and then respond. So the idea here is that people are going to fill in this form, and my wife is going to receive an email with the name and the email of the person who is going, and the person is going to receive an email saying, yeah, we got you, see you there. So the purpose of this form is to just build a mail list, essentially. But this is just a static website, and I'm going to host it along with my website, which is a static website. There is no way for me to really handle the form and send the emails on a static website. So here's the idea, and that's what we are going to code together here in this session. What I'm going to do is I'll have another website that is like a backend that only receives this request, sends the emails, and responds with 200. Okay, gotcha, send the emails. And the static website will have some JavaScript to handle calling this other service. So what we're building together here is a web server with one responsibility. It will receive the request that is the result of filling in this form, and it will send 2 emails, and that's it. That's all this server is going to do. That's our mission for today. So let's start a new project, and I'm going to be using JavaScript and Node.js here, and I'm going to need a bunch of libraries. And well, this is a Node.js project, so let's start with a package JSON file. And there are different things that this server needs to do. It needs to receive the request that comes from this form, and then it needs to send the emails. And I believe that sending the emails is the hardest part, so I want to start there. And what I already did before I even started rolling this is I created accounts on SendGrid and Heroku and whatnot. So by the end of this session, we will deploy the app to Heroku and see it live and working. So I already have an account there and everything. And to send emails, well, because of spammers, sending emails is kind of difficult, and that's on purpose. You don't want people just sending bulk emails all over the place and spamming everyone. So I went through the SendGrid process to verify my accounts, to verify my email, and to verify that I am really a person and I'm not a spammer. So what I did is I created an account, I came here to settings, and I authenticated myself as a sender, and I received an email on this address, which belongs to me, so I could verify the email. So all that setup is already done. I have an account that is supposedly able to send email, but I haven't tested before rolling this. We will see. Now, I'll come here to Email API and Integration Guide, and they have some documentation on how to build your application so that it sends email. And there is here 2 approaches. I'm going to go with the recommended one because they say they have support for Node.js. So, seems good to me. Now, they are going to tell me to install some dependencies and set up an API key and whatnot. So let's do all that. So let's make sure that I have all the prerequisites. Well, I have Node, then create an API key. I'm going to say that this API key is like Lois registry, which is the name of the project. And I'll create a key. Or actually, I should call this project Lois Baby Shower. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come back here to the integration guide, and I'm going to start over, and I'm going to call this project Lois Baby Shower. Okay, I'm back where I started, but now the project is named Lois Baby Shower. So I have here the API key and everything. I can just run this code, and if you're worried about the API key being on the video, don't worry about it. It's fine. I'm going to invalidate this API key after recording. It's just easier to do this than to blur out the API key everywhere. So I'll run this, and that's going to create a file to store the API key. Okay, let's run this on the command line. Okay, the API key is here in the file. I don't know why they're telling me to search this API key. Oh, because it has here export and blah, blah, blah. Okay. So the idea is that there will be an environment variable here with this API key. I don't like the idea of having this as a script, and that's why they'll tell me to source this file. I just don't really like this idea. So I'm going to set up this environment key, this environment variable, which is a key, in a different way. So instead of having this, I'll just have a .env file, and I will ignore that file. The .env file doesn't need export word. I'm not really sure that it even needs these quotes. I'll have to check. But then I can install a package called .env, and I can use that in my application. .env is responsible for reading the .env file and setting up all the environment variables in there. And it matches better what happens in Heroku when I deploy later. So the only thing I have to do in my script to use this environment variables is to have this line. So I'm going to create a file called index.js in which I will require this, and I will check that the environment variable is there and that it doesn't have the quotes. I'm worried about these quotes. I will see if they are here in the output or not. And it appears that it's not. So the quotes are good. The .env file is good. The dependencies, the .env package that I installed is here listed in package Json. I guess we are ready to move on here in this tutorial. Then I'm going to install the package for SendGrid. And then I have to use this code in my application, my index file. So this is requiring the SendGrid mailer. This is setting up the key, which is an environment variable that was set by .env. Let's see that the name matches SendGrid API key, SendGrid API key. Then the message comes from this to that with this subject, with the text and HTML. This is the body of the email. This is the material that appears in the body of the email. And then the message is sent. So I guess this from has to be from the email that is the authenticated sender. I don't know, we'll see. So I'll check here that implement the, click next. Okay, I've integrated the code above. Let's run index. And it says that this is forbidden. I believe. Okay, what's going on here? Rejection error, forbidden. Unhandled promise, whatever. I think what's going on here is the from. It should be sendgrid@liafac.com, which is the email address that I verified. Yeah, okay, so that worked. Now I'll verify the integration. Let's test your integration. Send an email from an application using the code you just integrated. If it runs without error, click verify integration. And it ran without error. And run it again without error. I don't know, we'll see. It worked. We successfully received your email. Your setup is complete. Let's see the email activity. Okay, nothing here. I guess those emails were just to verify the integration and they don't show up here. But okay, I can see that I saw before that it worked, so we can move on to the next part, which is to set up a web server to receive the contents of this form. So what I have to do now is start a web server. I'm going to comment out this part that is sending the email and start another idea, which is the web server. Then later I'll put the two together. So a web server, my preferred way of doing this is with Express, which is the de facto web server for Node.js. And to use it, I will just say Express here to require it. And then I'm going to write this code here, Express. And then this form is sending with a post HTTP method. So I'm going to match the post HTTP method. And it's going to send to just slash, which is when you don't specify a path like this. If you don't say slash Lois, you say just slash. That's the slash that matches here. And this form is going to send to just slash. When that happens, I will call this function, or really this function will be called with a request and a response. And then I want to do some stuff here. For now, I'll just console log some to-dos. I want to send an email to invitee, console log, another to-do, send an email to my wife, because my wife is handling all this, so she should receive an email with this data. And then finally, for the JavaScript that is running here on the static website, I want to return 200, succeeded, I sent the emails. So to do respond with 200. Oh, there is another thing I want to do, which is before all this, I need to grab the name and email from the form submission. And this is like optional of sorts, because this is such a quick and dirty server that will be running for 20 days and will be shut down forever. But I want to do this, I want to verify or actually validate the form data. And that means that I want to check the existence of the name and email fields. So I'm going to check that the person really filled in this form, and of course the person did, because these fields are required. If you try to send the form without filling the fields, then you don't send the form. But in case someone is forging a request or something weird is going on or whatever, if something is not fine, if the person didn't submit the form correctly, then I can bail out with some error. And yeah, I guess that is all I need to do for now. I will log all these messages, and I want to my server to listen on some port. So what I'm going to do here is eventually I'm going to deploy this to Heroku. So I want to check what port Heroku assigned me. Every time Heroku starts my server, it assigns me a different port, and I have to listen on that port. So I'll go to the process and port environment variable. And if that environment variable does not exist, it's not defined. For instance, when I'm running this in development, it will not be defined. I will default to 5000. So now I should be able to run this. And I don't see anything, which is good. It means that my server is now running, and I can go to localhost 5000 and get a 404. I don't know where root. The only root that is signed up, that is set up, is this root for post requests. But here is the get request. I'm trying to get this URL and it doesn't exist, but that's fine. The server at least is running, so all the setup is correct. I'll now go to the script that is generating this page, that is generating this form, and I'll set it up so that it sends the results of the form to localhost 5000. And this is, of course, just for development, but here is my form. It's sending a post, and the action will be HTTP localhost 5000 / this one matches this /, while this post is matched by the method post over here. So the form and the handler of the form are talking the same language. They agree on how to send the data. Okay, so now I have this form that sends a request to here. I'm going to restart the server since I last changed something on it. So now it's running with the latest code with these changes. And I can fill in a name, someone like John, or actually example.com. I think that's a more appropriate. And then I send the request and I can see all the to-dos. Of course, the browser is still hanging here. You can see that this request is never going to complete. I'm going to hit escape to stop this because I'm never responding. So the browser just keeps waiting for a response. So let's start with that. I'm going to come here, instead of this to do, I'm actually going to respond. So my response has the status 200, and I don't need to do anything else, so I can say that the response is over now. Now I need to restart the server again to see the change, and I'm getting annoyed by having to restart every time, so I'm going to install a package called nodemon for node monitoring. It will monitor all the changes in the file system. For instance, anytime I save this index.js file, it's going to get that, and then I can say, please start the server again, instead of having to come here to the console and restart it myself. So you can see here that nodemon is installed, and I will set up a script called dev, that stands for development, and that's node monitoring. And because the file is called index.js, which is the default name, I can just say node monitoring dot. It means monitor for file changes and run index.js whenever something changes. And I can say npm run dev, and I will see the server started. And anytime I save, so I'm going to hit Command S here to save, you can see here it's restarting the server for me. I don't have to keep restarting by hand every time. Excellent. Now let's see. Let's send the form again and see the browser terminating. It will get a response. It's blank, but we logged everything here, so yeah, we're good. This is what we wanted to see. Next, let's grab the email from the submission, the name and the email. So the data on the form is going to be the request body. So I will log this for now, rec body, and the server restarted because I saved. I'm going to send the form. You can see that the request body is undefined. Why would that be? Because there is a body, right? I have the form with some data on it. Now that's because by default, Express is super minimal. By default, Express does not parse the request body. It doesn't do anything with the request body. It just ignores it. So I need to say to Express, please, Express, parse the request body and give me the data as request body. So here is the line that I have to write in order to do this. I'm saying to Express, please handle the request body. And here the part of Express that is responsible for doing this is saying that I should be providing an option when using this. And I'm going to give it this option. For more on this, I recommend that you read the Express documentation on Express.js. Okay, so moving on, now the server is capable of reading the request body. I will send the form again, and then I see the name and the email. The data in the form submission is there. So I grab the name and the email from the request submission. I'll create variables here, name and email. That is the request body. Okay. Next, let's validate the form data. I'll check the existence of the name and email fields. To do this, I will check if the name is undefined or the email is undefined. If any of these two happen, then I don't want to run the rest of this function, okay? I will just say that the request is invalid. I don't want to run the rest of this. So I'll say return, and this way this function will stop executing. I will not execute the next lines. And I want to do something, right? I need to tell the browser, you did wrong. There is a mistake here, and it's not my fault. I, the server, am doing everything correctly. You, the browser, did something wrong in your request. So I'll say response status 400, that stands for bad request. The request from the browser is bad. And I will end, so the browser doesn't have to keep waiting for some response. I can just say end. Okay, so return prevents the rest of this function from running, and end tells the browser, we are done here. We are not doing anything else. You are good to go. So to test this, if I just send the form again, I don't see anything here. Well, I see the to-dos, which means that we did not stop here. But to actually test this, I need to go back to my form, and I will play a trick here. I'll just come here with the developer tools, get rid of this input, and now I only have the name and not the email. What I expect to happen here is when I send this, I expect to get a 400 here on the network tab, and I don't expect to see any lines of to-dos here. So let's RSVP and see that happening. So yeah, I don't see any new lines here, which means that these lines didn't run. And on the network tab, I get a 400. Excellent, so I did form validation. I can get this out of the way. Now I need to send an email to this person, to this email address. Well, we already know how to do this. It's right here. So this API key that is set up, I only need to do that once. I need to do that before even the application starts. So that is done here. I'm setting up the API key. But this sending of the email, I'll need to do there in the request. So I'll get all these and inline it, just so it's a single line. I think it reads better this way. And I'll send an email to the invitee, and that is to email from. This needs to be this always. It needs to be this from always. So I'll keep it here, or I'll put it in an environment variable. I think it's part of the configuration of the application. So I'll go to this here and then put it as an environment variable. I'll say it's from, and it will be this. And here I'll say process and from. And then the subject, that I think belongs here. It's not an environment variable. So the subject is looking forward, actually Lois, baby shower, looking forward to seeing you there. And the text will be, we'll see you soon. Okay. And I also want to send an email to my wife. So I'm going to say that this is wife, And for now, I will use one of my emails so that I don't have to ask my wife to test things for me. So I'll say wife@leafac.com. Okay. Now, we'll do here something similar, except that this too is process and wife. That. The subject is always baby shower. And here I'll put the name and the email, the person right here. So the name of the person and their email RSVP'd. And maybe I'll just put the name and email again in the text. And I don't need any HTML. No, I guess it could be nice. Because I guess I could have this as a link. Actually, I don't think I have to do that. Probably their email, probably her email client will already transform that into some link. And you know what? I don't think I need an HTML part in this email as well. I guess this should be enough. So now we come back here to the test application, and I'll refresh this to get both fields again. Now, this will actually send an email to me because I'm acting as my wife, and it will actually send an email to the email that I write here. I guess it should, right? So I'm going to say John and john@leafac.com. I RSVP'd. I don't see anything here anymore because there is no logging anymore, but the blank page means that something must have worked. So I'll check my email inbox right now. Okay, so after some wait, I got one email, not two. That's weird, right? I was expecting to get two emails, but I only got one. So this is the email that was sent later, this second email to my wife. I received it here on wife. That's kind of weird. I was expecting to see this email as well. And while I was waiting for this, I noticed a couple of things I want to change. First, I want to dial back on this idea of using environment variables for from and wife. That would be good if I were to make this application public and available for other people to use. And that is kind of weird. This is a one-off thing that I'm running for myself. So I think it's better to dial back here on the on this decision and make this just literally the text. Also, the wife part, of course. So yeah, this is better. I have to keep this in the environment variable because it's different between my local development machine and Heroku when I deploy. Also, I don't want to make this available for people on the internet, so I will actually create here. Oh, it's already there. It was in the instructions from SendGrid. I want to ignore this file. Oh, so look at that. The second email is here. It just took a while. Okay, so both emails are arriving. They may take a while, but they are arriving. That's good, but there are still a couple things more that I want to change. The next thing is I hit F12 here on the send method, and I realized that it returns a promise. So I want to serialize this, and the way this works right now is these two calls to send return promises, but the promises are ignored. What happens with this is the response is sent to the browser, and right away. These are just scheduled for later, which is good and bad because the browser receives an answer right away, but if these fail, the browser doesn't know any better. So what I want to do instead is to serialize these things. First you send this email, then you send that email, then you send the response to the browser. And in my static website, I will have something that will check, did the server respond at 200? If the server did, then I'll show something like success, otherwise I will show something like failure. So I want to have the status 200 being sent only if everything else succeeded. So I want to make this asynchronous. I want to make these two calls, I want to make them synchronous. I want to await on their result. I'll also check if this returns a promise, but I don't think it does. Yes, it's just void. So these two, they return a promise. I want to wait for that promise. And I want this email to be sent first because I think it's more important. The person who signed up may not even know that they should receive an email with a response. So it's okay if this happens later because this is more important. My wife needs to know who is coming. This is definitely the thing that should happen first because even if this fails, it's kind of okay, but if this fails, then it's catastrophic. So I'll say await here to await on that promise. Of course, because I'm using await here, I need to use, I think this is even a syntax error. Yeah, await is only valid in a sync function, so I'll make this function asynchronous. There's a gotcha here, and you need to read the documentation for Express to really understand the details of what's going on. But this function is asynchronous, which means that it's now returning, this whole function is returning a promise. This function itself is returning a promise. And Express does not await on the promise. It does not know that the promise may be coming back. So if something goes wrong in this request, we may never see that, especially if it happens after some asynchronous part, because Express will just continue running and never realize that an error happened. So there's a third parameter usually called next that we have to call if something goes wrong. So what I'm going to do is just put a try-catch block around the whole definition, and I will call next with the error if an error occurs. And now this works. I saved. There is no error here about async await. And I know that if something in here goes wrong, it will be caught because I will be calling this next callback function here that Express, this is the protocol that Express uses to communicate error. And this used to be the way everything worked in JavaScript before async await. And it just so happens that Express isn't updated very frequently, so it still uses this old idiom, and using a try-catch block is a way to translate between the old universe without async await and the new universe with async await. So yeah, now we are sending the two emails. In fact, it's funny because when I was testing this actually went to junk. So yeah, there you go. But anyway, we are receiving the emails. I just reorganized things somewhat, but I should be able to send this again and still receive an email. I'll try that, wait for the emails to arrive, and get back to you. Okay, this was actually faster this time. I got both emails, and I got them in order. First, I got the email that was sent to my wife, and then I got the email that was sent to the person. So yeah, I'm not sure that this is always the case, but I am sending this email first, and I got it first this time. I say that I'm not sure this is always going to happen so neatly because it may be the case that SendGrid reorders things. So SendGrid is going to receive this request and say, okay, gotcha, I'll send this email, then receive this other request and say, okay, gotcha, I'll send this as well. But then SendGrid internally may reorder the delivery. Whatever, we don't have to care about this. All you have to care about is the fact that await is making sure we can only send a 200 everything before return correct. If at least SendGrid knows that it's supposed to send the emails. Excellent. Now let's go to the next step and final one, which is to deploy this whole thing to Heroku. So to do this, I'm going to create a new repository on GitHub, and then I'm going to create a connection between GitHub and Heroku. This repository will be called Lois Baby Shower. That's what I'm calling the project, right? Yeah, Lois Baby Shower. I'll make it a public repository so you can have access to it with the link in the description below. I will add this as a remote in my repository. In fact, it's not even a Git repository yet, so I'll initialize it. And then I definitely don't want to commit everything that is in here. I need to ignore all the parts of all this node modules part. So now there shouldn't be 1,000 files in here. Yes, there should be only one, the git ignore file, the package JSON with my dependencies, and then index with these, which is our code. I don't have any API keys here. Okay, good. They are on the .m file, which is ignored. Okay, good. So I'm ready to create this commit, and this is the whole app. Really. There's just one more wrinkle, so I can push this. Oh, okay. Cancel. Before I push, of course, I need to say git remote add and then push. Okay. Okay, reloading this, I can see the whole app, really. I'll come here to Heroku and I will create a new app. And I will link the Heroku app with the GitHub repository. So I'll call this Lois baby shower. Create an app. Connect to GitHub. And I want to deploy anytime I push, so I'll enable automatic deploys. Now, every time I push to GitHub, it will deploy to Heroku again. For this first time, I could deploy manually. If I wanted to deploy the code that is already here, I could deploy manually, but there is a wrinkle, and I want to fix this, so I'll not deploy branch because this would fail. The thing is, I need to tell some things to Heroku. I need to tell which version of Node to use, and I need to tell what to do to start the application. Let's start with the later thing because it's easier. I can just say start, and it's just node dot. Why node dot? Because I'll stop my nodemon thing. I'll stop everything. The server is no longer running. And if I say just node dot, it will run index, which is the default. So it's similar to nodemon, but it will not be reloading every time. I don't want to reload every time in production. In fact, I think that I don't even need nodemon in production. Everything else I need to install on Heroku as well. But nodemon is definitely just for development. So I'll rm or uninstall nodemon, and I will reinstall nodemon, but this time for development only. This will create a new section here that specifies the dependencies for development. And so it amounts to the same. It will still be available for me here, but it won't be available on Heroku, which I guess is minor. It wouldn't hurt to have nodemon installed on Heroku. It's just unnecessary. So that's what I'm doing here. So yeah, that's one thing. The other thing is Heroku Node.js version. Especially because of things like these. These is a newer feature in JavaScript, so I need to set up a newer version of Node. I think the default would be a very old version, probably something like 12. I definitely want a newer version, so I'll change this by putting this in package JSON. I'll say that the engine needs to be at least Node 14, which is a newer version. And this, I think, is all I need to make the app work. Oh no, yeah, there is one more thing. Of course, the environment variable, the SendGrid API key. I need to set it up here on my environment variables. So I'll just add a new key. And it's there. Okay, at this point, if you know Heroku, you might be thinking, oh, why didn't you just create a new add-on with SendGrid. It's available on Heroku as an add-on. Yes, SendGrid is available on Heroku as an add-on, but I tried to use it and it didn't work. I couldn't go from Heroku to SendGrid to get the API keys and set everything up. It just didn't work. The integration between Heroku and SendGrid doesn't seem to work very well. At least it didn't for me. But if you create an account on SendGrid, completely unrelated to Heroku, and you create an account on Heroku, completely unrelated to SendGrid, and you wire your app in this way that I'm showing, then it works. Or at least it should. We'll see. Okay, so the environment variable is there. I did the changes I needed here to set up the version of Node and the start script. So I believe we have everything to set up for Heroku. I think we have everything we need. So I'll push. We'll look at deploy. And actually, I think it's activity. I think that here this will show up as, okay, we are building a new version. Yeah. So here is a building progress. I want to view the build progress to see if it's using Node version 14 and it's installing everything and it is launching the application and the application is ready to see this URL. If I go to this URL, it should just say I cannot get / That's reasonable. That's what we saw before, but I can change this form. It's running locally here. I can just change the form. Instead of going to localhost 5000, I could go to this / I don't think this / is necessary. I think it's optional, but it's good to be there. So I'll just refresh this page. And I want to inspect this to guarantee that I'm posting to the right URL. I am. So finally, Mary. And a blank page means that it was good. It worked. Probably. I'll wait to see if I get the emails. Just hanging there. And here they are. It only took a minute or two, and I got both emails, one to my wife and one to the attendee. And that is it, a simple app, a simple Node.js app that receives the form from a static website, does some work, and sends some emails using the SendGrid API, and returns a 200, then I just have to, on my static website, write some JavaScript to react to all this. And that's the story. These are things that you could do with paid services. I guess one is called FormKeep, but you can do it yourself with a free Heroku account, a free SendGrid account. As long as you're not sending too many emails, it works just fine. And it's such a simple thing to do. It only takes like half an hour to do. A lot of fun. Thanks for watching, and I see you on the next one.